The Texas legislature begins a special session today with a key priority for national Republicans. And that's redrawing congressional districts to help elect 5 more Republicans in next year's midterms. Typically, that happens at the beginning of a decade to reflect a new census. But Texas GOP Congressman Troy Nehls explained it this way.
We need to make sure we keep the House. We got to keep the House. I think we keep the House anyway. But I support the idea of raising. Yeah, get 5 more. If we can get 5, let's get 5. Hell, I'd like to try to get 6.
Now, many Democrats have long been in favor of a redistricting overhaul, taking the map making away from the politicians. But now Democrats say they need to fight fire with fire. Here's what House Minority Leader Hakeem Jeffries told me. Some members of your delegation, Democrats who want New York to change the map, to try to add seats, Democratic seats in New York. Would you support that effort in your state?
Let me just simply say the maps in New York are not as fair as they could be. What we're committed to doing as Democrats in New York, in California, in New Jersey, across the country, is make sure that the congressional maps are as fair as possible.
All right, my excellent panel is back. I mean, this has major ramifications for the midterms and beyond. And typically, these fights happen at the beginning of a decade, reflecting new demographics, reflecting the populations. But now, I mean, redistricting fights are just often such pure, raw politics at its core. And in this case, the implications are significant, but there are also major risks for both parties.
There are more risks for Democrats, probably. And Jeffries jumping into this so quickly was fascinating because Democrats' argument here has been we are the party of fair maps. He used the word fair, but what that means in states is that Democrats are the party that would often support a nonpartisan redistricting commission, as they did in California, as they did in Michigan. They would take themselves off the board with the expectation, 1, those maps would be easier to protect in a tough year, which they mostly have been, and 2, we're going to be the party, the Democrats, that doesn't rig maps. And now they're saying, well, maybe we are. Maybe we're going to be more like J.B. Pritzker in Illinois, and every 2 years, voters, whether they like it or not, are voting for who's going to draw the next map. That's been the case in North Carolina, which a lot of them will point to. What's been the downside for Republicans of gerrymandering North Carolina? Well, they have 3 more seats. There is no downside.
Yeah, and these are the Democratic seats that there are states that are now looking at potentially changing their maps. You heard Jeffries refer to New York, but also New Jersey. He also told me about New Jersey as a possibility. We're also hearing about Minnesota and Washington State. California is at the core of this, too. I asked a number of Democrats about this. Would you support doing what Republicans are doing in Texas and some of these other states? You encourage your party leaders to look at redrawing the maps in those states.
Yes, hell yeah, I would encourage us to do that. I think you have to. You just can't say Trump can just do whatever he wants to do.
If Republicans want to play by these rules, then I think that we shouldn't have one set of rules for one and the other set of rules for another. I think we need to even a playing board.
These are not normal times. These are extraordinary times, and we should not bring a knife to a gunfight.
And 2 of those Democrats there, Lizzie Fletcher and Mark Veazey, they could be targeted by the GOP if this redistricting effort goes forward. The Democrats, well, they want Jeffries to fight this, but it's going to be an incredibly complicated and expensive venture to do that.
Yeah, it could also backfire. It could backfire for Republicans in Texas. Donald Trump wants 5 additional Republican seats, but that also means that some of these very safe Republican seats could turn maybe not so safe, and they might not win, and they might lose some members. But now the sheen is off of supposed independence and bipartisanship or nonpartisanship in these gerrymandered states or in districts. But the House, we have seen the effects of a very political gerrymandered system that is getting worse and worse every time that there is redistricting. There's only, maybe a dozen really competitive seats in the House these days. And that is why you have a polarized system. That's why you have more very conservative districts and more very liberal Democratic districts. And ultimately, it means that the House is going to be a very narrow margin for a very long time.
As it has been in the last couple of Congresses. Just look at the Texas map, 25 Republican seats, 13 Democratic seats. So if you look at 5 more Republican seats there, you can see why Donald Trump is so eager to see this. But the reason why Trump is pushing this so hard he's fearful they're going to lose the House in the midterms, and a Democratic majority would be potentially catastrophic for him and his administration.
Yeah, listen, advisors to President Trump have been saying both to him and publicly that they believe that this White House is on a clock, that they only have a certain amount of months to get his agenda done because they think that the House is, at least as it is at risk of flipping. And so Donald Trump is working actively hard to stop that happening. And he is not doing it under the guise that politics should not be in this process. He has said very clearly he wants 5 more seats. He's gotten on the phone with not just Greg Abbott of Texas, the governor, but also congressional Republicans in Texas, telling them, this is what I want, do my will. And he's, he's pushing them to do what he wants them to do. And so I think that this is a part of Democrats trying to match that fire. But of course, this again stems with Donald Trump basically saying no to the conventional idea that we should talk about redistricting in a nonpartisan way. And he's rejecting that.
And we're hearing some concerns from Texas Republicans. They don't want to say that publicly yet and defy President Trump because they're worried about their own seats. There are some New York Democrats, too, who are also concerned about the impact that they may have on their seats. The Democrats just choose to respond in kind. I asked one Congressman Tom Suozzi, he represents parts of Long Island, about whether this is a good idea for Democrats to do this in his state.
Do you think that's a good idea for New York Democrats?
Probably not. I will have to wait and see what happens.
Do you think they should wait, not do that before 2026, change the maps in New York?
Well, traditionally, people do this every 10 years after the census, so that seems like the normal thing to me.
But, Dave, for all the talk about the big, beautiful bill, Medicaid cuts, and all the rest, it could come down to these issues, redistricting, that happens behind the scenes in a large part, that could determine the next majority.
Yes, and Democrats probably argue again in North Carolina. It came to it last time. They would have had nothing else changed on the congressional map. They would have had a 1-seat majority. They would have lost it right away due to the deaths. But because North Carolina redrew the map, Republicans had a majority. Ohio is already on schedule to redraw its map, in part because Ohio Republicans took a ballot initiative that would have banned gerrymandering, rewrote it to make it look like the ballot initiative legalized gerrymandering, and narrowly beat it. And so that is the Democratic view here. I get the degree to which they very quickly, with the exception from Suozzi, some have moved away from the language of equanimity and fairness to, if Trump does it, we have to do it. Fantastic example of Trump running in one direction downward and everyone following him. They're just not hearing Democrats say, for the good of the voters, we need to. No, it's to beat Trump, we need to do this.
Yeah, but again, you move some more of the swing voters into other districts. That puts other seats at risk, which is why this is such a complicated play. We'll see how that turns out. Hakeem Jeffries indicated he believed that ultimately they'll be successful in this. We shall see.
One question is, what's the map going to look like that you all are looking at come the midterms? Because you've now had this move in Texas to rewrite congressional maps. The president is hoping it means that Republicans can pick up 5 more seats. And then you have former Texas Congressman Beto O'Rourke calling on Democrats to pursue redrawing congressional maps in Democratic-led states to kind of push back against these efforts that we're seeing in Texas. Let me play how he put it yesterday to Jake.
I think it's time that we match fire with fire. I think Democrats in the past too often have been more concerned with being right than being in power. We have to get serious. We have to be absolutely ruthless about getting back in power.
Beto's talking about states like California, Illinois, New York. Do you agree with him?
Well, first, let's talk about Texas. The Republicans are running scared. They know they can't win on policy, so they figure they have to rig the system. And if we look at what's happening in Texas, remember, when they start trying to change these lines, they're going to put a lot of Texas Republicans in districts where we can win. So absolutely, we are going to be competing in those districts across the country if they go forward with this plan. That gives us a great opportunity, and Republicans are going to lose their jobs. People are responding. You expect there to be a strong response because of what's happening. We absolutely are going to respond. We're going to compete everywhere in Texas and across the country and take back the majority.
But does the D-Trip endorse a move among Democratic-led states to go this path as well, to move towards partisan gerrymandering?
we are going to, if they go down this path, again, they're going to create districts where Republicans are going to be vulnerable. We'll be competing in those districts everywhere. But of course you expect folks to respond. Of course they're going to respond. Governors across the country, we absolutely are going to respond because we want to stand up for working families. We want to make sure that voices are being heard and that Republicans
when
are
you
not
say
rigging the system.
when you say respond, you're saying you're okay with the response being working to rig the system the other way as well.
Talk to governors across the country. If Republicans go down this path, we are going to make sure that we are standing up for working families, that we are standing up to make sure that Americans' voices are heard. Again, if they go down this path, be careful what they ask for because they're going to create opportunities for us and Republicans are going to lose their seats.
Quite a statement coming from the chair of the DCCC right now. Congresswoman, thank you for your time.